Greetings, everyone, and welcome to the second episode of Fantastic Warhammer, a show, podcast, whatever you want to call it, all about the silly, epic, and funny moments in the Warhammer fantasy history. Today, I am joined by someone who hails from the, I was about to say home planet of Warhammer, home country of Warhammer, Mr. Harlan TV. How are you doing, Harlan?
I'm good. Hello, everybody. It is great to be here. And funnily enough, I might add to that, when I was quite young, I got to go to the headquarters in Nottingham of the Warhammer headquarters, and I saw a giant life-size Space Marine model.
Yeah, they have that outside the store. I think it's called Warhammer World.
Yeah, so I went before like they had a proper tour and you could go inside. So there wasn't much there when I went, apart from this giant Space Marine.
Exclusive VIP access, insider info on the new Eldar models coming from Harlan in just a moment.
And I saw it all in the workshop. I know what's coming.
He knows everything ever since he went there, how many years ago was that?
It was must be going on 20 years ago now.
Oh God, okay. That's perfect. That's about the time when the Eldar got their last update.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
There we go.
I don't know if you know anything about 40k models.
Yeah, no idea.
Anyways, today, Harlan, we are going to be talking about the Sundering, and that is the culmination of an Elven civil war that happened after Malakith got a little bit grumpy and did some pretty bad things. Before we get into that at all, what is your experience with Warhammer in general? How much of the lore do you know? How long have you played any of the games? Anything like that?
So yeah, I've back when I was younger, I used to play. I had my whole model 40k army, Blood Angel Space Marines.
Nice.
I also have some Tyranids or Tyranids. I never knew how to pronounce
It's Tyranids.
that.
It's Tyranids.
Is it Tyranids?
It is.
Right.
It's named after a planet called Tyrant where they first showed up.
Right. Okay. There you go. Had some of those guys. So yeah, I played the tabletop for a while back in my teens, early teens to late teens, and then sad thing, I think I went to university, and then I sold it all. Also, regular Warhammer, I didn't really play much at all. But then the video games started coming out, and I played a few of the 40k ones like Dawn of War, Dawn of War 2, Dawn of War Soulstorm, which is one of my favorite RTSs. And the Total War Warhammer and Total War Warhammer 2 more recently as well. I'm looking forward to the third one.
I do also remember you playing Space Hulk on stream at one point.
Oh yeah, sorry, I did. So yeah, because there was a few Space Hulk games, and I remember playing Space Hulk Vengeance of the Blood Angels, I think it was. Yeah, that was in the 90s. And I loved that game. It was so scary and atmospheric at the time. And I went to play it recently, and it really wasn't. It was just at the time.
Imagine. Oh no, scary polygons.
It was oh my God, there's a 3-pixel gene stealer coming towards me. And yeah, I played that one, and then they recently, I think about 2 years ago, did a new Space Hulk game. Yeah, that you saw me streaming. Yeah, that was actually quite fun. That game, I actually quite liked it. But you played as Grey Wolves rather than is it the Grey Wolves?
There's Grey Knights, and then there's Space Wolves. I don't think there's Grey Wolves.
I'm thinking of Grey Knights. I think then
Grey Knights are Psychers.
Yeah, because you all had psych abilities. Yeah, I think it was. I'm sorry, I'm googling it at the same time.
No worries.
Yeah, right, it was great. I think you played as Great Knights. Yeah.
So in general, you have a decent amount of experience with the Warhammer 40k universe, but not so much with the fantasy universe.
No, the fantasy universe. The most I got out of it was playing Total War Warhammer 2, and even then I don't know much about the lore, basically, full stop. Don't know much.
That's completely fine, but just because you played Warhammer 2, you might recognize a few names that we will bring up during this episode. So, cool. The Sundering, the Elven Civil War. A bunch of bad shit happened because some elves didn't like each other. What a surprise. That's very unique for a fantasy setting.
Very unique.
Before we can start talking about the Sundering, there are a few people we need to mention first, and these are, of course, important elves. Our first one is this guy you see right here. His name is Anarian. Now, do you have any idea who Anarian is?
I don't know, but I love his armor.
He was the first Phoenix King and the one to unite the elves during the first invasions of Chaos. He, in all sorts of manners, was a total Chad and a badass.
I can tell. Look at him. He's just standing in front of a dragon like nothing's happening.
Yeah, absolutely. He was a badass, and I'm not gonna go into detail about him because it's not an episode about Anarian. It's just to quickly give you some information. So during his time as the Phoenix King, he had a wife, and that wife and his children, he had 2 children as well, was killed by demons. It later turns out that his children were actually alive, but he didn't know because they only came back like way later. So he thought his wife and children were dead. Now, because he's the Phoenix King, that means he stepped through something called the Sacred Flame of Asu. I know Anarian, Asurian, they're close names, but they're different. Asurian is a god, Anarian is a person.
Got it.
But stepping through the Sacred Flame of Asurian, Anarian became the avatar of Asurian and therefore the Phoenix King. So he's a really powerful dude as is. However, after his wife and children were killed by demons, he also became kind of mad and like really hated the demons. Like he hated the demons before, but now was like they took the last cheeseburger kind of hate, you know?
He double hated them after that.
Yes.
Oh, like triple, quadruple. I guess how many siblings? How many kids do you have?
Many layers of hate.
Many layers of hate. There, yeah, you'd be pretty peeved, wouldn't you? You wouldn't be happy.
Absolutely. So he went to the Blighted Isles and picked up something called the Sword of Kane. Like Asurian, Kane is an elven god. But Asurian is like, I don't remember exactly, but I think he's like the warrior god and like bravery and, you know, all that good fancy stuff.
And he's got a fancy sword as well.
And Kane is, Kane is a different god. And Kane is the god of murder.
Oh, right. Okay, so there's a god of murder.
Yes, he's straight up just a god of murder. I don't think you have any other titles. Maybe god of violence, bloodshedding, whatever it may be. But he
god
is
of murder. So
he is the god of murder, and this is
very
his
specific,
sword.
Isn't it? It's very specific god.
It's quite clear what his point was as a god. Anarian picked up the Sword of Kane, and the Sword of Kane being like the mortal representation of Kane in the Warhammer world, made him incredibly powerful because now he's the avatar of both Asurian and Kane. That said, Kane's sword, or the Sword of Kane, not only grants you a lot of power, but as murder gods tend to do, they also kind of corrupt you. Because it is the god of murder sword, and as such, you kind of just start only thinking about war and murder and bloodshed and all those horrible, terrible things.
You start thinking murder. Murder's okay. Maybe I'll just do a little bit of murder.
It's like he didn't use it on any of his own guys, but it's the kind of thing where you're like, oh yeah, the battle's won. When can I get to murder some more people or more demons?
Where's the next battle at?
Yeah, exactly. Okay, I had my 5 minutes of break. Can I go back to killing stuff now? Yeah. He got corrupted like really badly to the point where he needed potions and magic spells to even like fall asleep. So he was really badly affected by the sword. Another thing that happened.
Is it worth it? Is it worth it?
It's if you have a goal in mind, it is worth it because you become near unstoppable.
I think I value my sleep too much, though. I like having a nice sleep and a nap, so
Who needs to sleep when you can cut off heads?
Oh, that's true. That's my motto in life.
Besides getting these like extreme feelings for murder and bloodshed, it also came with something called the Curse of Kane, which would later be called the Curse of Venarion, because I think of everyone who's wielded the Sword of Kane, only Anarian wielded it for as long as he did, and therefore it cursed his bloodline. But I'm not entirely sure about that one. But the curse of Anarian, it manifests in different ways. But
that's a hell of a curse.
that is cursed. That's a cursed image I found.
It's so cursed.
It doesn't have anything to do with the curse of Anarian. I just found a funny picture. But his entire bloodline was cursed. That meant both future, like, you know, grandchildren and grandchildren, whatever it may be, but also like any living relatives. And the Curse of Venarion manifested in different ways. It could be a physical, mentally, or spiritual defect. And I only have one example that I'm not even sure this is correct, but I think so. Do you know Teclis?
No, I do not.
Okay, he's one of the playable legendary lords you can play as in Warhammer 2 for the High Elves. And he was born with like a super frail body compared to most elves. Like elves aren't jacked up like beasts, but Teclis was born with a very frail body in just like even for elven standards. While his brother Tyrion, who's also in Warhammer 2,
I remember Tyrion. Yeah,
They're twins. They're twins. So
Yeah.
Teclis and Tyrion are twins. And they're also, sorry, I completely forgot to mention this. They are like grandsons of Anarian, grandsons, whatever. They're down the bloodline. But they are affected by the Curse of Venarion as well. And while they're both super gifted in their talents, they also end up like paying the price for their curse, so to speak. Tyrion, for example, ends up picking up the Sword of Kane in the end times. That's a whole different story. We don't need to get into that. I just wanted to mention that there is the Curse of Anarian, and that affects his entire bloodline.
Oh, thanks, Anarian.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he did save Ulfwan, or like the place where the elves live. But, you know.
Yeah.
So, his wife was dead. He was wielding the Sword of Kane. But along came another person, another elf. He met during a campaign to free Nagarife. That's like a part of the You know Atlantis, right? Where the elves live?
Yes.
Yes. So a part of that is called Nagarife, and that's where he met someone called Morathi. Morathi is described as being incredibly beautiful, like super, super beautiful, and like basically people look at her and they fall in love with her, more or less, like indescribably beautiful. She was also very skilled in magic and alchemy, and she also had visions of the future, even from a very, very young age. And even as a young girl, she saw visions of the demonic invasion many hundred years before they happened. But she was like cursed as well. Not by Anarian, but she was cursed because she had the gift of foresight, but like the curse of no one believing her. Because
no.
During this time, the elves were just like living in paradise, right? They were having a great time. Everything was going well. And she was like, holy fucking shit. The demon invasions, like they're going to be here. Everyone's going to get murdered. And meanwhile, everyone, all the other elves sipping their teas and reading their poets, like, what the fuck she's on about?
Relax.
Yeah,
chill.
exactly,
You ain't seen no demons around here. Have some more grapes.
Yeah, it was probably something like that. I would imagine. But no one ever listened to her. But when Anarian came to Nagariff to free it from the demon invasion, he would meet Morathi, and they would strike up a relationship. I don't actually think they get married, but I'm not 100% sure. They might have gotten married. Whether or not they got married doesn't really matter, because it wasn't a relationship of love or passion. And I have a quote here. I'll read it in just a second after I take a sip of water, because I can already feel I'm drying up in my throat.
Oh, it's exciting. I want to hear this quote now.
All right, here's the quote. However, what Anarian had with her, Morathi, he could never call love. The Phoenix King, doubting he was still capable of any tender emotion or feeling, even with a woman as twisted as Morathi. To him, this was a mad, sick passion in her caress. Anarian found respite from his troubles. It was only after she gave birth to Malakith that he learned he still had some spark of feeling within him. If not hope, at least determination to see the war to an end.
So they weren't like lovey-dovey couple.
No, it was more like they found each other's company relaxing, and like they could find peace for a moment with all the ongoing war when they were in each other's embrace and stuff like that.
Right.
Right. So remember earlier when I talked about how he couldn't sleep, Anarian? Morathi would brew potions to help him sleep and keep his murderous intents from like the Sword of Kane in check, because I imagine he would put down the sword and then his hand would start trembling, like he hadn't had a line of cocaine and whatever. And he was like, I gotta go murder something.
It's time to start slashing again.
Yes, and she used spells and potions and stuff like that to help keep that in check.
That's good. So it was also quite a convenient relationship as well, I guess.
It was absolutely. That said, Morathi, she's not a nice lady, like at all. She might sound like a nice lady, but truth be told, she is a cunning bitch.
Oh.
And here's another, it's not a quote, but it's said here that Anarian, even to Anarian, it was unclear what her motives and ultimate goal was. She fought against the demons, but it was also clear that she had studied them and their tactics to a degree that was beyond just fighting them.
She was a bit too interested in the demons, was she?
It wasn't necessarily she was interested in the demons, but maybe more like where they came from and like how they functioned. So I know you haven't watched the episode I did with Franchise, but demons aren't like physical beings. They are magical beings, and as such, they don't really, they don't die. You kill them here, they just go back to the realm of chaos, and then they come back whenever. So she was probably a little bit intrigued with like the magic aspect of it, and like eternal youth and like life and stuff like that.
And we don't know what her agenda was, it sounds like.
I mean, we kind of do, but that's like for another episode, I would say. Because Morathi is an important person as well, so I could probably do an entire episode just on her. Anyways, moving on.
Look at the size of the axe. That's huge.
Those are the huge things I'm looking at. Anyways, so that was just a little bit. That was just a little bit of background info going into the Sundering. One last thing. So the Great Vortex, that's the thing you play in the Warhammer 2 campaign. You go like try and take control of the Vortex. That was created by someone called Calidor Dragon Tamer, and the Vortex was created to sap the excess magic of the world, so that demons would have a harder time manifesting because they're magical like beings. So by sapping all the excess magic away and sending it back to the realm of chaos, demons couldn't really just like pop up the way they did.
Ah, that's interesting. So it was like, okay, no more magic, everyone. Oh, was he taking all magic away? Or
No,
like
the excess magic.
Right, okay.
Yeah. And at this point, Anarian was like, the fighting is done. I have Morathi, I have a son. I'm gonna go buy some cigarettes. And he walks off. He was mortally wounded during the last battle. There's a big battle about protecting the vortex while the ritual's being cast and demons show up and whatever. He was badly wounded, and the last known thing he did was return to the Blighted Isles and return the Sword of Kane. And then he just disappeared.
He took it back, did he?
He returned it. Like he knew his fighting was done. Yeah. And I guess he just had like a moment of clarity or something like that, I suppose.
Yeah, don't need this anymore.
Yeah, it's like, yep, I'm done. But he put it back. He didn't throw it away. He put it back at the altar.
In the right place.
That's so someone else can pick it up and become a murderous god.
That's good. It's good to know.
And then he kind of just disappeared. No one really knows what happened. By now he is dead for sure, but no one knows if he ascended into like a godlike being, or if he jumped into the ocean and drowned himself, or lived out his life alone somewhere. No one really knows.
Just vanished.
He just vanished. Straight up. Now, with the vanishing of Anarian, it was time to find a new Phoenix King, because the elves had found that there was a need for unity between their different cities or kingdoms within the Elven society, but they needed like a guy on top that could unite the elves if anything like the demon invasion were to happen. So they decided to keep the tradition of having a Phoenix King, who was like the, High King, so to speak.
Yeah, so one person at the top to kind of, look over everything. Yeah,
there's dozens and dozens of princes and princesses, and they can have control over their own part of Ulthuan, but there's like the Phoenix King is on top.
Yeah.
Right. So, as you might have heard me say, he had a son with Morathi called Malakith. And by fantasy lore rights, his birthright was to become Phoenix King, because he was, son to the king, and therefore he should inherit the throne.
Makes sense.
That said, Anarian had a council of princes, which were like his advisors and generals and closest allies. And while Anarian, during the last few, years, time, whatever it was, he settled down in Nagaryth, the place where he found Morathi. He actually founded the kingdom of Nagaryth, so it wasn't called Nagaryth until he got there. Doesn't matter.
Details.
Anyways, he ruled from Nagaryth, and these Council of Princes had been his friends throughout his entire time, even before he picked up the Sword of Kane. And they started to notice how cruel and, like, evil kind of life was in Nagaryth, probably because he was, corrupted by the Sword of Kane.
Mm-hmm.
And so they were like, you know what? I mean, Malakith, swell guy, great warrior, magician, all this good stuff. But, like, if he grew up there, we're not sure we want him as, like, the High King, the Phoenix King.
Were they a bit worried he was...
They were a bit worried he just didn't have a good upbringing and wouldn't make a good king. So they kind of like went, like I think they actually talked to him about this. Like, we're not sure you would be a good king because of your upbringing. Wow. And Malakith, what do you think he does?
I guess he wasn't happy with that response.
That's actually completely wrong.
Oh, was he chill?
He wasn't absolutely bro. He was just like, I feel like I should be the Phoenix King, but if you decide unanimously to choose someone else, I will swear fealty to that person.
Oh, that's in fact, that's a quite kingly thing to say. They should have been a king after he said that.
Yeah, probably. And they would have avoided a whole lot of trouble later on if they did that. But they decided that, all right, Malakith is chill. Nice. So they decided to make someone called Bel-Shanar. Shanar? I don't know how to pronounce his name. It's Elven names. Bel-Shanar to become the next Phoenix King. And Bel-Shanar was a warrior who had fought alongside Anarian, so he was tested on the battlefields and he had seen the horrors of chaos.
Was he one of the council? Like,
no, I don't think he was. I don't think he was part of the Council of Princes. He was a prince, but he wasn't part of the council.
Right.
I think the council is also quite noble in that they wouldn't recommend themselves.
Yeah, right. They wouldn't.
They're like, our role is as advisors and what do you call it? Throne seekers? Is that the name? Word?
Yeah, I think that's a word. Throne seekers. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. But yeah, they chose Bel-Shanar, who was a warrior who fought alongside Anarian. So he was a warrior, but in general, he was an advocate of peace and order. And that's what the Council of Princes felt was most important right now after this war against the demons that lasted like 1,500 years. They're like, all right, we need to chill down now, just a little bit. We need someone who would rather try and fix things by talking than fighting.
It's a smart move, really, after a load of war. You don't want somebody else more hungry for war, do you?
Absolutely. And Bel-Shanar and Malakith, they were actually, I don't know if they were friends, but they were pretty good buddies. They weren't like, they didn't hate each other. And Bel-Shanar recognized how powerful and good Malakith was. And he actually made Malakith High General Commander of the Elven armies.
Nice, that's a cool role.
I assume that's like the second highest role you can get within Elven society after being Phoenix King. So Malakith, he was up there. Like he wasn't shunned away or hidden or anything.
Just sacked and just made to go work at the burger bar.
He had a big role. He had a big role in Elven society. Anyways, so Bel-Shanar becomes Phoenix King. Malakith becomes High General Commander. And Malakith sets out into the world to kind of explore it and establish relations with other races and look for places to establish new high elven or elven cities and just expand the Elven Empire in general. During this time, this is the only picture I could find of Malakith without his helmet on. So he looks evil, and don't worry about that. Don't worry about that. He met up with the dwarves, and he actually, contrary to every other fantasy story ever, the elves became quite good friends with the dwarves.
Now that is going against the grain of all fantasy lore, isn't it?
Yeah, it absolutely is. It only lasted 50 years, but it was a good time during that time. And they became good friends partially because Malakith and his army of elves helped the current High King of the dwarves, with the most dwarven name ever, Snorri Whitebeard, take on a large army of beastmen. And they took him down, they won, and they you know what, elves, you guys are not so bad. Let's establish relations and trade, and we'll help you set up your colonies and all that good stuff.
Let's be friends.
Absolutely. And they became quite good friends. As
Nice.
Malakith continued his search across the world, he eventually wandered into something called the Chaos Wastes. And
Ooh.
the Chaos Waste, they're pretty bad, as they sound. The only life, I think it's described as the only life that lives in the Chaos Wastes are mutated and magical. Like, there's nothing as simple as a tree or, like, the rats or whatever.
Grass or anything like that.
Things like that. If there is life,
Yeah.
it's, like, horribly mutated and monstrous or just, like, super magical and dangerous.
Looks hot. Looks too warm.
So, this is just a picture I found. I think the Chaos Wastes have, like, some of it is, like, just ice, some of it is sand, some of it is like burning grounds.
But like lifeless, all like just yeah.
Yeah. The only life there is chaos, and chaos is magic, and therefore it's like,
Would
Right.
demons roam around there, or would they still need to come through from like the chaos world?
Yeah. So when chaos breaks through, it's from the chaos realms, chaos wastes, because I haven't quite read up on that part exactly, but the chaos waste is connected to the chaos realm, but the chaos realm is like a different dimension, so to speak.
Yeah.
So it's a bit iffy on that. But the Chaos Wastes were created when the polar warp gates collapsed. You will learn about that if you go watch the first episode of the podcast.
Oh, I shall.
Yes, good. While Malakith was searching the Chaos Wastes, the reason he was there was looking for magical artifacts or anything that could, like, increase the power of the Elven Empire.
He was looting, basically, wasn't he?
Sorry?
He was looting.
Yeah, he was. I mean, I suppose, yeah, he was looting in some shape or form. And there he found something called the Circlet of Iron. And the way he found it was kinda weird, because he was wandering around and almost like as they arrived at the place, the ruins just kinda opened up. And inside was this Circlet of Iron. Almost like someone was, puppeteering things behind the scenes.
It was just there for the taking, was it?
Yeah, it was. It was just laying around there, and the Circle of Iron was older than the Elven race. Like, it's described as perhaps the most potent magical item in the Warhammer world.
Whoa.
And,
And that's going some. There's a lot of magical items in that world.
And Malakith, he picks this thing up, and that starts the downfall of Malakith, because he starts studying the Circle of Iron at first with good intentions. Because it's a powerful magical item. Like, imagine what you can do with something like this.
Yeah.
But as time goes on, he kind of starts, like, wondering about the magic, and he stumbles upon something called dark magic.
Uh-oh.
Now, most magic is tied to a lore, and dark magic is a lore per se, but dark magic is kind of like if you didn't follow any of the rules with magic and just kind of went like, yeah, I'll do that, and just like, how would I describe it the best way? So imagine you're painting something on a canvas, right? And you have a tutorial, like, oh, up here goes the trees first, and then you do the grass, and then the water, and that's like how normal magic works. You kind of follow a tutorial, and you make it do as you want. With dark magic, you kind of just like take the paintbrush and just throw it at the canvas and like force it to do what you want.
Wow. Okay.
So it's extremely powerful, but also quite dangerous, and easily corrupts the user because they just forcefully try and do whatever they want.
Is it like harder to control? Do you reckon? Is it?
I'm not sure it's hard to control. I just think it's like it's that power thing where like it's quite easily accessible, and therefore you can get a lot of power quite quickly. But that also makes you like arrogant and corrupt and that kind of thing.
Like raw untapped power, basically.
More or less, like unlimited power.
Unlimited power. Yeah, but it comes with a price, obviously.
It comes with a price. And so begins the downfall of Malakith. And this is where we can mention the Curse of Venarion. I mentioned it could be like a physical thing, a mental thing, or a spiritual thing. And with Malakith, it was most likely a spiritual thing. Like when he started like using dark magic, it kind of corrupted his spirit, and he started having different thoughts about how things should be.
Uh-oh. So he was quite, I was going to say susceptible to it, even more susceptible to dark magic, because he was already at a disadvantage because of the Curse of Venarion.
Most likely. It's not like written in like, it's like, this is why it happened, but that's just my way of interpreting it, because some people, some what do you call it? Some offspring of Anarian lives completely without any signs of the curse taking like doing anything to them, and then all of a sudden, like one small thing happens, and they just go crazy.
Yeah.
So it can be like a minor thing or a major thing. It can be hidden or visible, things like that.
Cool. Well,
So-
not cool.
Another problem.
Not cool, but interesting.
Another problem that was rising up on Ulthuan, Atlantis, where the elves live, were cults of pleasure that started rising up all over Ulthuan. And
Oh boy.
it's not just a brothel where elves go on to get banged. It's cults of pleasure is like excess of a lot of things. Excess in pain, in sex, but also drugs and music, like anything, any kind of emotion or thing you can do, but like turn to 11.
Wow.
And these were starting to pop up, and at first people didn't really mind because it was a time of peace and people just wanted to have fun.
People wanted to cut loose a little bit, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. But quickly it became a little bit, excessive. People were like, I don't think it's described exactly as this, but they were like cutting a finger off while banging, or getting so high on drugs that they were just jumping from buildings and just like treating other people poorly because they weren't part of the cults of pleasure.
Oh man, these kids with their crazy new, hobbies. I'm just gonna go.
Their
gonna go get
hobbies.
drunk and cut off a finger.
Yeah, just the
Have a
usual.
wild time.
Before we know it, they'll pop Tide Pods in their mouth, and
That's one specific brothel that does that.
Yeah. And at some point, the people were like, "Okay, Phoenix King, you gotta do something about this. We don't like where this is going. This is turning into some murderous, weird bullshit. Please make it stop." And Belshazzar, as you might remember, was a warrior, but he was a man of peace. And therefore, he had a really hard time, like, committing to deal with them and how to deal with them. Because he was like, I have a hard time discussing diplomacy with these guys while they're banging and cutting each other's fingers off. It's really hard. And they were, like, hidden. They started to, like, do it in secret because they know people were, like, not pleased about it. So
it's a hard thing to police, though. Well, I'm trying to back him up now, but it's you can't be the fun police and go, "Hey, everybody, stop having fun."
Yeah.
People want to do it, but at the same time, people are taking it a bit too far. So
right. But in general, people were like starting to question Belshazzar's rule because he wasn't able to do anything about it.
Right, he was just indecisive, was he?
I think he just didn't really know how to handle it in a peaceful way, and he was like, that was this whole thing, so he didn't know what to do.
I mean, I don't know how to handle it. Sounds weird and gross.
Yeah. Along comes Malakith. Malakith comes home to Ulthuan after his expedition to the Chaos Waste and all those other things. And as the High General, Commander, whatever, he steps up to his good buddy Belshazzar and says, "Belshazzar, don't you worry about it. I got this. I'll take care of it. I'll root out all the cults of pleasure. I'll find all the like hidden worshippers and cult members. Don't worry about a thing. I know you're a man of peace. I'm a warrior. I'll handle it because this needs to be solved." And Belshazzar was like, "Oh wow, thanks, bro. That's so great.
Yeah,
that's so
top
great."
man.
Meanwhile, Malakith is like, "Oh yeah, it's all coming together." Because this was the perfect excuse for Malakith, who had now started to want the title of Phoenix King after his downfall. It was a perfect chance for him to root out any politicians and diplomats and princes that might be against him, because he would just say they're part of the cult of pleasure, and then they would be killed.
He was using this as a way to, he could attach that name to anyone. I was like, oh, they're occultists.
Yes, and he just started like systematically removing people that were against his rule or like his right to the Phoenix throne. One thing I forgot to mention, I just want to say real quick, is that while he was having a downfall, one of the reasons why he decided to betray Belshazzar was because he wanted the elves to be a warrior race. He wanted them to be ready for the ever encroaching forces of chaos or anything like chaos that could happen, and almost wiped out, like the chaos almost wiped out the Elven race. If it wasn't for the Vortex, the Elven race would have gone extinct.
But is that partly the corruption from the magic kind of
I
making
would
him
I would
more
guess, yeah, yes.
minded? Yeah.
I would guess it was one of those things like, okay, I mean, I guess we can have peace right now. I'm the High Commander, General. I'll make sure we still have a fighting force. But then as he started to get corrupted, he was like, look at Belshazzar, that peaceful motherfucker, just smoking his peace pipe and doing whatever things instead of prepping the entire continent to like fight the war.
And not lead. He'll see it as Belshazzar not leading properly either. Like if he can see him indecisive about what to do about these cultists.
Yeah, absolutely. And so he grows contempt with the way the elves are right now, and he decides, okay, now's my time to rise up. And that's when he uses the cults of pleasure as an excuse to take down his political enemies and diplomats and all that kind of thing.
And it's like you say, it's all coming together for him.
It's all coming together. Because, who do you think started these cults of pleasure?
Is it? I can't remember her name, but the lady.
Ding, ding, ding! It's Morathi.
Yes!
Mama Morathi, who is the mother of Malakith, was like the leader and like high priestess of the cults of pleasure.
The reason I got that right was because that outfit just screams cult of pleasure, you know?
Yes.
that is something you would wear to, one of those, places.
Right. So yeah, his mother was the high priestess, and instead of like actually dealing, I think he might have taken out some cult of pleasure just to like keep up the image of him actually doing it, and also to make it more believable whenever he would kill someone who wasn't part of the cult of pleasure. It was like, oh, no, for sure, because I killed these guys down here, and they were definitely cult of pleasure, and they said that this guy was also part of it. So he probably did root out some of them, but in fact, these were more like followers and maybe even worshippers of Malakith, and were like, yeah, you know what? Malakith does belong on the Phoenix throne. He is our rightful king. So while he was taking out political enemies, he was also building up an army, or rather, his mother was building up an army for Malakith.
Wow. Thanks, mother.
Thanks, mama.
Thanks, mama.
Also, how horrible must it be to, like, your mother is the hottest elf to ever be born.
And she set up cults of pleasure.
Yeah, and
I don't want to hear this.
She participated in them as well. I just want to say that.
Yeah. And
absolutely.
Malakith's like, Mom, I don't want to hear about what you do in there.
Mom, thank you for the support. But keep it to yourself, please.
Just give me the army, and I don't want to know.
Yes. The last step of the plan, taking out political enemies and building up an army. The last part came in like the greatest betrayal of all time. It's not the greatest betrayal of all time when you think about it, but when you take it in terms of how good friends Malakith and Belshazzar was, this was probably the greatest betrayal of all time. And Malakith confronted Belshazzar and the Council of Princes and accused Belshazzar of being part of the cults of pleasure.
Oh, Malakith.
And before anyone could really start talking or doing anything, Belshazzar died from poisoning.
Oh.
Because Malakith had poisoned his wine.
No, Malakith.
And Malakith used this as an excuse that Belshazzar had taken his own life to not be interrogated because he would be ashamed. Elves are very pride and so he used that as an excuse he killed himself so he wouldn't be exposed as part of the cult of pleasure.
Oh, wow, he really twisted it, didn't he?
He really did. However, the Council of Princes was like, I don't think that. And then a fight broke out between Malakith and his followers and the Council of Princes.
Oh, so they just fully flat out. Did they think it was Malakith immediately?
Yeah, they were like, Malakith was like, oh yeah, he killed himself. And like, we saw you pour the wine, motherfucker.
We were in the room. Yeah. You just shut your eyes as you did it, as you poured it into his drink.
I think that's not how it went down, but let's just go with that.
I like to think that's how it went, yeah.
And so a fight between Malakith's followers and like the people who wanted to see him as a king and the Council of Princes and like the people who were loyal to Belshazzar, a fight broke out between them. And a lot of people were killed and most of the council died right then and there. So the original Council of Princes of Anarian, Malakith's father, like his best friends, advisors, all that kind of thing, died there.
Oh wow! So that was a proper. What's the word? A coup? Is that the word?
Yeah. I mean, it was. I just call it straight up a betrayal because he betrayed.
Yeah, it is a pretty big betrayal considering how much bros they were.
Yes, absolutely. So most of the council is now dead, and Malakith stands before the Sacred Flame of Asurian. You remember me mentioning Asurian, like the the big High King god of the elves and all that?
Yep.
So when Anarian became the Phoenix King, he had to step into the flames of Asurian, and the reason he did it was to a sacrifice to like the gods to be like, help us deal with the chaos invasion. And his flesh was burned, Anarian, and he was basically dead. But then, like, moments later, he walked out of the flames, completely healed, and, now as the avatar of Asurian.
Did Belshazzar do the same thing?
Yes, every Phoenix King steps into the Sacred Flame and comes out. I don't think they all become, like, superhuman demigods, right? But they all go in as, like, a ritual to be deemed worthy by Asurian.
It's like a rite of passage situation.
Yeah, kind of thing. Yeah. And Malakith now steps into the Sacred Flames of Asurian, and these are like ever-burning magical flames. They're not just like, a small pyre.
It's not a little campfire.
No. This is like magical flames. And he walked in there being like, I'm the son of Anarian, the first Phoenix King, defender of Ulfuan, uniter of the elves. I am sure that as that kind of person, or that kind of son to that kind of person, I will pass this ordeal. No worries.
I got a feeling something happens.
Yeah, he did.
Oh
no! Are you winning, son? And Malakith's just on the fucking floor burning.
Oh dear.
Malakith stepped into the flames and like it started burning him, and he was like, okay, yep, that's fine. My flesh is gonna burn. I'm gonna be reborn any second now. He's like, why am I still burning? Why am I still burning? Ow, hot. And he hurls himself out of the flames before he dies. But he is like, he's a charred corpse. Think Anakin on Mustafar after getting all his limbs cut off and burning. And like, he is in bad fucking shape.
He's a fried elf.
Yes, a fried elf. Deep fried elf memes coming to you soon. And he is like, if he was a Pokemon, he was on 1 HP, and like the red HP bar would be blinking, and the sound like doo 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 would be pinging like mad.
So he did survive, did he?
He survived. He yanked himself out of the flames before he burned to absolute like ashes.
Ouch.
And now, he couldn't really do anything anymore. He was just laying there, fucking charred corpse. So Morathi, his mother, and his followers, they picked up whatever was left of him and, like, ran to Naggareth, the place where Malakith and Morathi were from and where Anarian created the court. They fled back to there, and during the betrayal and the killing of the Council of Princes, like, whoever was still loyal to Belshazzar, or like was loyal to Belshazzar, I suppose, they were panicked because like holy shit, like every high like person, diplomat, prince, and all that, they're all fucking dead. What are we going to do? What the shit's going on? So they escaped like no worries. They just ran right to Naggareth, and no one really pursued them because they didn't know what the fuck was going on.
Yeah, they had no leader, right? They were
they were leaderless, and like
the council's gone.
Yeah, they weren't just leaderless. They lost the advisors and like the generals, all that kind of thing. So they ran back to Naggareth, which is over here. Here's the map of Ulfuan. Like the big red arrow points to Naggareth. So like it's over here. Kingdom of Naggareth, over there. Let me just take a sip of water real quick.
They just scoop it away, did they?
So, actually, I'm a little bit unsure where... I should look this up. Where the Sacred Flame of Asurian is, because I always assumed it was in Lothern. But I'm not sure, because Lothern is down here. I don't know, can you see my mouse?
Yep.
Yeah, so Lothern is down here. Naggareth's up here. I'm actually not sure what the Sacred Flame of Asurian is. Maybe it's actually here. Whatever the case, they ran away, they escaped, fled, whatever. Malakith being, having stood in the flames of Asurian, his body is ever, like, he's not on a flame, but his flesh is forever burning. because they're like
Ooh.
magical flames. So
Oof.
you could
That can't feel nice. Permanently just basically feeling like you're on fire.
Exactly. And to keep him alive, Morathi had to use magic and potions, and a special set of magical armor was also needed to be created. And that would become the Armor of Midnight. Now, you might remember some pictures of Malakith with like the helm and horns and all that kind of thing. That is the armor. And it wasn't put on him. It was fused onto him.
Oh, wow.
Because that was the only way to keep him alive.
They literally stuck it to his skin.
Yes, he cannot. I think he can take off his helmet, but anything else is permanently stuck to his body.
Ouch. Well, ouch, but kind of badass at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, it's a real badass armor, but ouch.
Ouch.
But yeah, Malakith just like out of spite, basically. Like, oh, how dare the fucking gods reject my claim to the throne. Out of spite, he was keeping himself alive, and then the spells and the Armor of Midnight and all that kept him alive.
I bet he was pretty angry. Was he angry or upset, or was he?
No, he is fucking angry.
Yeah, because he thought he was gonna get the throne, right?
He was so sure he was worthy, right? Yeah, absolutely. He was so sure, but nope. Anyways, as I mentioned, the other elves, not the... So I'm gonna go ahead and say Dark Elves and High Elves now. Technically, they're not split into Dark Elves and High Elves yet, but it'll make it easier to understand which side we're talking about. So Dark Elves are Malakith and Morathi, and then High Elves are the, good elves, so to speak.
So I had a suspicion this was kind of how... Because I actually didn't know Dark Elves and
it'll come later on, but just to make it easier to understand which side of the elves I'm talking about, I'm gonna say Dark Elves and High Elves.
This is how it all started.
Yes, absolutely. Right, so they're shattered. They don't have a Phoenix King. They have lost most of the Council of Princes. Shit's going down. But they all know that, okay, Malakith, Morathi, and Nagaryth, the entirety of Nagaryth is now on Malakith's side. And a bunch of other people from the different kingdoms of Ulthuan also is on Malakith's side. It's basically a 50-50 at this point. 50% is behind Malakith, 50% is against him.
Wow. So he's got a pretty decent following then.
Yeah, because he killed all the people who were against him and started and of course some people didn't know his ultimate plans, but they were just like, oh my god, look, this guy is getting shit done compared to Belshazzar, who didn't.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, the elves, the High Elves reconvene and they decide to elect. Oh, here's the Armor of Midnight, by the way. Forgot I had this picture.
It's cool.
Yes, it is a very badass armor. It's very Darth Vader. But yeah.
It's very spiky.
Very spiky. The High Elves, they convene and they elect a new Phoenix King, the third Phoenix King, and that is Imric of Calidor. Now, Imric is a playable character in Warhammer 2, but this is not that Imric. This is the grandfather of that Imric, I believe.
Okay.
But he becomes the third Phoenix King, and upon walking out of the flames of Asurian, he takes the name of Caldor the Conqueror. Well, he takes the name of Caldor the First, but he later be known as Caldor the Conqueror. And that's after the guy who created the Vortex, who was Caldor Dragon Tamer. I mentioned his name once at the beginning. Not sure if you remember.
Yeah.
Right, so Caldor the Conqueror is the grandson of Caldor the Dragon Tamer, but his name was Imric first, but he changed it to Calidor. So now you know.
And he passed through the flames, no problem. He passed
through the flames, was coronated Phoenix King, and more or less as soon as he was had the Phoenix crown on his head, attacked. Nagaryth are the Dark Elves.
Yeah.
They attacked.
As soon as he was anointed,
more or less. He was like, all right, I'm king. What the fuck's going on down there? Oh shit. And it's now it's time for the Elven Civil War. And there is fighting back and forth. Malakith is leading his army, and Malakith is leading his army of Dark Elves. Calidor is leading his army of High Elves, and they both win great victories all around the place, but they haven't really faced each other yet. They're both great generals and great leaders. Malakith is a magical user at this point as well. I don't think Calidor is, but I might be wrong here. In any case, they're both great warriors, great generals, and Calidor is at least as militarily capable as Malakith, who was the high commander, high general of the Elven army for I don't know how many 100 years. So like Calidor, he's a Chad. He's a big deal.
So you basically got a couple of Chads going at each other.
Absolutely. Now I'm gonna fast forward a little bit because if anyone has watched this podcast, the previous podcast, we don't go into every single little detail because otherwise it would be like 4 hours long. Fast forward, battles are won, whatever. Then comes the battle where Malakith and Kalador meet each other on the battlefield. Malakith is riding a black dragon that's basically like a dragon egg that has been corrupted and made, evil and vile. And only the most cruel and powerful sorcerers and dark elves can tame these beasts. And Kalador, okay, so this is dumb, but Kalador comes from the kingdom of Kalador, and they're known for their dragons and being dragon riders. So Kalador also has a dragon he's mounted, and they meet each other on the battlefield.
So this is a dragon face-off. This is Dragon-off.
They are both on top of their riding their dragons, flying around, fighting each other. But Kalador comes out on top, and he slays Malakith's black dragon. And it plummels from the sky, and Malakith hits the ground hard, and, he's hurt. He has to retreat. And during the retreat, the rest of his army is also like, ooh, yeah, the big badass Darth Vader on a black dragon couldn't win. I think I'm gonna peace out as well. And so the rest of the army also starts retreating, and they fall back to Nagaryth, which again is one of the kingdoms of Ulthuan.
So that's a win for Kalador?
That's a win. That's a huge win for Kalador. He forces Malakith and his armies back to Nagaryth, gives him a chance to gather his armies and make a push towards Nagaryth. So yeah, that's exactly what happens. I have a few pictures here. For some reason, this is what comes up when you search Malakith versus Kalador. He's on a pony here, but it says in the lore he's on a dragon, so I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Maybe it's just a horse-looking dragon.
And the fighting continues all across the realms. But in general, the Dark Elves have been pushed back to Nagaryth, and Kalador has the upper hand. And then...
Not looking good for the Dark Elves.
No, but then Malakith comes up with a thought.
Uh-oh.
And that thought is, if I can't have it, no one can have it.
Okay, right.
And he's like, I will take my birthright. And he comes up with a plan to destabilize the Great Vortex. Do you remember what the Great Vortex does?
Yeah, that it took away all the excess magic from the world.
To make it harder for chaos to manifest in the world. And he plans to destabilize the vortex and take control of the demons.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's a bold strategy.
It's a bold strategy. And even his closest followers and people are like, there's at best maybe a 30% chance this works, right? And Malakith is like... what was that meme? Was like, I don't care about the odds or whatever.
Never tell me the odds.
Yeah. He's like, I do this and it works and it's great, or I do this and it doesn't work and it's still great because I'd rather see the whole world burn to chaos than not be Phoenix King.
Right, so it's basically what do they call this? This is like the scorched earth policy, isn't it? Where it's just like, it's just like, oh well, either I win or screw them all, basically.
Probably. That's probably, I can't say for sure if that's what it's called, but maybe. Who knows? Luckily...
Plus his back's against the wall at this point, isn't it? Like
it is like they are more or less, they're not under siege per se, like not exactly where he's standing, but they are like losing ground.
Yeah.
So yeah, there is one person amongst the followers of Malakith who's like, all right, this is a bad shit idea. Like, holy shit, this is so fucking dumb. Like, what do you mean you don't care if the world burns to chaos? And that guy was called, and here's another dumb elven name, Urathion of Ular.
Wow.
And Urathion, yes, it's a silly name. And he went, hold up, and he was like, this is dumb. And so he left Malakith and Nagaryth and went to warn Kalador. And this is when Calidor is like, okay, we need to make the final push, and we need to do it right fucking now. We need to go to Nagaryth, and we need to kill Malakith and Morathi and his followers. Because this is some bullshit. This is some real bullshit he's up to.
This is some bullshit.
Yeah. So Malakith starts his ritual alongside his coven of mages. They use their dark magics to try and destabilize the vortex. And as the ritual goes on, chaos sorcerers start showing up to give Malakith a lending hand. They're like, I see what you're doing. You're trying to make chaos come back. We'll give you a hand. And this is like, I think this is the only case in like ever that chaos sorceress has shown up to help someone do something. I mean, it is for their own benefit, the chaos sorceress, but still, it's like Malakith is not like aligning with chaos. He wants to control chaos. So it's a bit of an unprecedented situation, showing just how fucking stupid of an idea this is.
Yeah, I guess like he probably would have seen it as, oh well, they are giving me their power, right, to help complete this ritual.
Probably.
Whereas the sorcerers are pretty much like, well, actually, just we'll take any way to get chaos onto this planet.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah.
So yeah, the ritual goes on, and the High Elves are trying their best. They also have magical users, of course, trying to weave in counter spells and like stop the ritual. But everything they do is just not working. And Malakith is laughing all the way to the bank right now because he knows he's about to win. He's about to destabilize the vortex, bring back chaos, hopefully take control of them. In case he doesn't, then he's just gonna laugh anyway because everything burns and dies. Yeah,
he loves it.
That's the current situation. However, Calidor, Dragon Tamer, not the Phoenix King, the guy who created the Vortex. This is a thing you probably don't know, but the people who created the Vortex, they're still alive.
Okay, so they're still around for all of this.
They're not around because the Vortex is not a thing you do. It's a ritual you keep going.
Oh, so right. So it's not that they made it and then they were like, okay, Vortex is done now.
It's like Vortex done. Put up a sign. Please don't touch.
Right. Yeah.
No. The place where the Vortex is called the Isle of the Dead, because it's dead people holding up, the world, so to speak, or keeping the world safe.
Yeah.
Because these mages are, I'm not sure how, but they don't die. Like their duty is to keep the Vortex up for eternity.
Yeah, they got to keep that bad boy going to make sure.
I assume they use magic to prolong their lives while they cast the spells, whatever the case.
So they kind of sacrificed themselves, like
they sacrificed. They did. They absolutely did. So Calidor Dragon Tamer says from the middle of the vortex, so Malakith's magic is now reaching the vortex itself.
Yeah.
He's casting from Nagaryth, right? He's not standing outside the vortex and casting. He's in Nagaryth and casting a ritual all the way from there to the vortex. But from the center of the vortex, where Calidor Dragon Tamer and his other mages stand holding the vortex alive, Calidor says, "Fuck you, Malakith. Fuck you and your stupid idea." And he uses a reverse Uno card to weave counter spells into the vortex itself and like empower the counter spells by using the vortex. And all the magic that Malakith and his mages and the chaos sorcerers sent to destabilize the vortex is now sent back straight to Nagaryth.
Oof.
And all that magic just straight up splits the country, the island, shatters it.
For real, it just breaks the actual island apart.
So remember this map I showed you earlier?
Oh yeah.
Yep. You see the red line?
Yeah.
That's how it looks now. So everything past the red line are things that sunk into the ocean or broke free from the island.
Wow.
So a good 1/4 of the outside of Ulthuan straight up just cracked off the island.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Malakith standing there well, shit. Shit. Not only did our ritual not work, we also literally just lost our kingdom. Because you can see here, most of Nagaryth is
I was
gone.
Gonna say, it's basically all half of Nagaryth is basically just
Yeah, and
got
like,
evaporated.
huge, like, city-sized, country-sized, maybe even chunks of the island is sinking into the ocean.
Oh, Malakith. Damn you, Calidor!
Damn you, Kalador! And your Uno reverse card.
Yeah.
So yeah, big parts of Ulthuan split off and they sink into the ocean. Now, with their dark magic, they come up with a plan to escape from Ulthuan. They use magic on the giant pieces of rock floating around and make them float like a boat, like a huge, giant, city-sized boat. And they sail off towards, I'm just going to say North America, North America part of Warhammer.
Yeah.
They sail off there, and these things will now later become known as Black Arcs. They are also part of Warhammer 2, and they are giant fortresses. In-game, they kind of look like, just a giant ship, but they're actually pieces of, like, Ulthuan that is being kept afloat by magic, and then small cities are constructed on them, or, like, just small cities are left on them from when the crack happened.
There's just giant floating cities.
They are
right?
more or less floating city fortresses, I think they're described.
Wow.
Yeah. So Malakith, his mom, and his followers, they sail off to Nagaroth, right up here. He names it Nagaroth after he comes there. He founds the kingdom of Nagaroth.
This is mine now.
Yes, he's like, I live here now. And at this point, this is when the Dark Elves become the Dark Elves, and the High Elves become the High Elves.
Did the floating islands did they all just get to Nagaroth and settle there, or the floating islands, floating city islands still float about?
They use them as fortress cities to go around the world and do whatever the fuck they're doing.
Right.
In game, they work in Total War Warhammer 2. They work as recruitment platforms, so you can sail those around, and then you have a lord wherever, and he can recruit units off the Black Arc.
Right.
Because like they are city-sized ships, more or less.
Yeah.
They are giant hunks of rock with magic.
And that's where the Dark Elves came from, or have never appeared.
That's how they took up the name Druki, which means Dark Elves.
Druki.
And the High Elves called themselves the Asu. Oh, we're the Asu. We're so noble, and we drink wine, and we're poets, and we're the greatest and finest race in all the mortal realms.
They are a bit up themselves, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. They are. I mean, the Dark Elves aren't that much better. They're a lot more cruel. But yeah.
So what happened back on Ulthuan then? Did in the northern part then did Calidor then go, oh well, they've all just buggered off, or did they all leave Ulthuan?
So not everyone left Ulthuan. I think all the ones that escaped were the ones who were on the Black Arcs that sailed off to Nagaroth, and the ones that were left over were hunted down and taken care of. That's also why Caldor got the name of Caldor the Conqueror, because he conquered like most of Ulthuan back for the High Elves.
Right.
And yeah, now Malakith is living on a new continent with his mom and his Dark Elves. And I found this little neat comic that I think summarizes this entire podcast very well. I don't know if you can see it.
I can see it. Yeah.
Yes, it's like the scene from what do you call it? Revenge of the Sith, Star Wars, where Malakith is like in front of the Council of Princes, like, you deny me my title of Phoenix King? That's outrageous. That's unfair. And then it's him burning because of the Sacred Flame of Asu. And now he's just sitting in the snow in Nagaroth, and he's like, I hate snow. He says that in game as well. He is a parody on Darth Vader. Darth Vader hates sand.
Say that? Does he say I hate snow
he's like,
in the game?
I hate snow.
That's hilarious. I bet he's fuming. He's like, I don't want to end up here.
He does hate snow. That's another thing I should mention with Nagaroth compared to Ulthuan. So Ulthuan is this like paradise island that was created by the old ones for the elves. Like it was basically perfect. Yeah. And now he's ruler of like a snowy. He's the ruler of Canada, more or less.
Yeah, it's snowy wasteland.
It's like, yeah, you can live some places here, but most of it is just like snow and mountains and forests.
Yeah. I guess it would be for him, for Malakith. It might be nice for him to roll around in the snow, just to cool off
That's a
once
good
and
point.
again. Yeah,
It's a note that like the flames still burn, like his flesh is still burning to this day, but the cold air and like snow does give him some relief of pain.
Maybe it just melts as soon as he's on that because he's just so hot all the time. He's just
like
permanently walking around in a puddle.
I imagine if he needs something to drink, he'll just take a bunch of snow, throw it on his helmet, and it'll just melt and seep into his mouth.
I'm done. Hey, I just want to fry some eggs, Malakith. Can you just lie down for me?
Oh God! I don't think you want to do that though, Malakith.
Fried Malakith eggs.
So, I mean, this is not something I'm going to go into detail with because I want to do that for a Malakith episode. But he has his own Council of Princes, so to speak. I think it's called the Council of Dreadlords, something like that. And Malakith likes to keep dead Dreadlords sitting around the table.
Wow.
And
okay.
he will speak to them like they're still alive.
Okay.
And he'll be like, "Oh, you think that's a strategic choice? I see. And that is to scare all the other alive Dreadlords. Because Malakith has no problem killing you as you're sitting at the table. If you like...
That's like the ultimate power move, isn't it? Just keeping the corpses there.
Yeah, it's a reminder that if you fuck up or go against Malakith or like anything like that, he'll kill you. He does not care like how high of a standing you have. It's just, you do shit, you get fucked. That's a sentence that didn't come out right. Whatever.
Chat shit, get... Well, hold on. Chat shit, sit on the Council of Advisors whilst you're dead.
Yes, maybe.
Doesn't quite work.
Anyways, I also think there's details about him keeping some of those Dreadlords alive, even though like skeletons, keeping them alive with dark magic, because he has the ability to take people's souls.
Wow.
Anyways, that's for a completely different episode. I just wanted to mention that real quick. But yeah, as Cetra, the Imperishable, says, he is even worse than a vampire. He is, may Petra forgive me for uttering this word, an elf.
Wow.
And
saying something, isn't it?
With that more or less concludes our episode here on the Sundering.
That was super fascinating. I learned a lot there.
The Elven Civil War and the Sundering, and in general just Malakith, is probably my favorite parts of Warhammer Fantasy.
It's just interesting to hear where the Dark Elves actually came from, right? Because I never even paid it any mind. Well, I knew, obviously, because Dark Elves were in 40k as well, and I never really thought, oh, well, why are the High Elves and Dark Elves? Eldar, I guess, in 40k.
Yeah. I'm not sure how much of 40k you know, but their story is very much the same, but one is like, fantasy, and the other one is sci-fi, grim dark. Yeah. But how they got what they got is very similar.
Yeah. And man, Malakith really did do the dirty on everyone, didn't he? He really ultimate betrayal, as you said.
It was. The cinematic when you start his campaign in Warhammer 2, I think the advisor's like the world has seen many betrayals, but none quite as fucked up as this one.
Yeah. It's not even one betrayal. It's like so many betrayals because he first outed him as the occultist, right?
Yeah.
And then poisoned him.
And then poisoned him, then killed his father's advisors and friends, and oh boy.
Non-stop betrayals.
Non-stop betrayals all around. One thing I forgot to mention, I wanted to mention real quick. Caldor the Conqueror is out on sea chasing down the last Druki, Dark Elves. And he is ambushed by a fleet of Dark Elf pirates. And they take up the fight, but the ship is sinking and he dies. Not quite sure how he dies. It just says he dies on sea. I think it's hinted at that he is drowned, or like he drowns on the ocean, and that's the end of Caldor the Conqueror.
He did his best. Well, he did okay, all things considered, to be honest, right?
Before he died, he got Malakith out of there. Well, I guess Caldor the Dragon Tamer got him out there, but Caldor the Conqueror was part of it.
Yeah, both Calidors did their bit.
Yeah, and he freed Ulthuan from most of the Druki, therefore he's Caldor the Conqueror. He did a lot of good things before he died.
Yeah, nice.
Absolutely. Yeah. that's the end of the episode, Harlan. Do you have any questions? Anything that I went over too fast, or something I need to reiterate? Anything?
I don't think so. I think I'm gonna fire up a Dark Elf campaign. I want to see that cinematic.
Nice.
Do you play as Malakith? Is he?
You can play as
like
Malakith. Yeah, you can play as Malakith, Morathi, Crone, Helebron, Lokir Felhart, and there's two more. I can't remember their names.
Nice.
But yeah, Malakith also like in game he's really cool because he's a warrior lord, but he also has the dark magic. Cool. He has a spell called Soul Stealer, which is incredibly high AoE damage and heals himself for the damage he deals.
Nice. I do remember when I played my Vortex campaign. I played as High Elves, and I used to hate coming up against the Dark Elves. It's like all the other factions were all right, but I always used to struggle against the Dark Elves.
I love the Dark Elves. They are probably my favorite race. Yeah, I'm an edgy teenager. Okay, this is cool. This is cool.
Yeah. Mom, it's not a phase.
It's not a phase, Mom. I wear this armor because I have to, otherwise I die.
Exactly.
Oh, I should mention real quick. So in the lore, there is some hints that Morathi and Malakith, they're mother and son, right?
Yeah.
But there are some hints that there's some incest going on.
No, I was gonna ask, to be honest, because that did cross my mind, but because that feels like a very much cultist of pleasure thing to do.
Yeah, I think it's mostly been like what do you call it? Rewritten or like removed.
Right. Yeah.
Because they were like, I think most of that lore was probably written back in the day when it was just like, all right, it needs to be edgy because it needs to be edgy. There's no reason for it. We just need to make them like weird.
Yeah. I mean, that definitely certify them as weird.
Yeah. But Morathi still got her cults of pleasure going on, and she's also doing some demonic pacts and shit like that because she stays young forever, and people are like, how does she do that?
Oh yeah, there's a question then. So did anything ever come of Malakith and Chaos then? They don't they're
no.
not
The ritual was completely stopped and it destroyed. And Malakith hates Chaos. Like he wanted to use Chaos to take the throne of Ulthuan so he could unite the people against Chaos. Yeah, he wanted to use Chaos to this. It's like I use the stones to destroy the stones. Situation.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool.
All right.
Awesome.
Harlan, thank you so much for joining me and wanting to listen to me ramble on about Warhammer Fantasy lore.
Thank you. It's fascinating. Thanks a lot for having me, Ryan.
Of course, and you're very welcome to come back anytime you want.
I will. I shall.
I know you don't really stream that much anymore, but in case you do, where can people find you? Twitter, Twitch, YouTube?
Well, funnily enough, I actually might get into streaming, next week. Yeah, only one day a week, which I think I'm going to be Thursday evenings. It's going to be one stream a week because that's as much as I can do with everything going on. But you can find me at twitch.tv/HarlanTV and my Twitter for schedules and crap memes and pictures of dogs. What is my Twitter handle? Twitter handle is at this is Harlan TV.
This is Harlan TV on Twitter and Harlan TV on Twitch.
That's it.
I wanted to mention also real quick that I also have plans of playing my last Warhammer 2 campaign before Warhammer 3 is coming out. I can't really say anything else, but I may or may not have early access coming at some point. The benefits of being a verified content creator. It's not a secret that those people. I'm one of those people. We Pride and Acer and big poets and noble warriors. No, whatever. It's not a secret that we get early access, but I can't really say when and what we get to see. But I'm gonna be playing some Warhammer 2 on my Twitch channel as well. But Harlan, you said you were gonna play some Warhammer 2 as well, maybe?
I might just fire it up after this.
Yeah, let's go.
Yeah, I might play some on stream. I've started replaying The Witcher 3 again yesterday.
Oh, that's a great game. I've played through it 3 times. I haven't completed the DLCs because every time I get to the main quest or end of the main quest, I'm like, all right, I played for 150 hours in 2 weeks. I'm gonna take a break and then I never come back to it. Oh, okay. Anyways, if you want to see me or Harlan play some Warhammer 2, you can check out Harlan TV on Twitch for his channel and Rejnols for my channel. Harlan, thank you so much for joining me, and
Thank you.
I'll just see you whenever I see you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, everybody.